Hello and welcome to Lost in Creation. This is Saz Ross, and today I have the most amazing speaker, administrator, educator, and I am so excited to invite Jenn Whitmer here today, and she's going to talk a little bit about her and what she's been doing with her speaking career, and I'm so excited to dive in. Hey Jenn, how you doing?
Hi, I'm great. How are you? So good to see your face.
Oh, yes, and I'm so happy to see you. You're like such a ray, bubbly ray of sunshine.
Well, thank you.
You just have great energy. So talk to me a little about, what you're doing, where you are, and how your career has evolved.
Yeah, it's kind of a crazy ride. So I am in St. Louis. I was in education for 20 years. I started out as a music teacher. Near and dear to my heart is the arts. And after teaching music for several years, I had 3 kids in 3.5 years. I decided to stay home, and then we had another. And then I went back into the world of education as an administrator and really loved helping teachers learn their craft and improve, and learned the value of a strong leader and what leaders need and require. And a lot of it turns into your own self-awareness and your own ability to manage competing interests. So I worked at a private school on top of that. So there was not just parents and teachers and faculty, there's also donors and a broader community. And so managing all of those competing interests and my own self-awareness became a really, really big deal. And so I started wanting to help other people learn how to do that. And after a bad experience of a leader who didn't have the skills to manage that, I was compelled as a teacher to go learn more and then go teach other people because that's what you do. And so that's how I ended up in a speaking career. And I work with teams and people. Really, my big idea is that they would have whole lives. And I do that through raising self-awareness through the Enneagram and helping them with communication and conflict resolution skills. That's what I do.
Oh my goodness. It is obvious that you come from teaching background just because of how articulate you are. And I think as educators, it's almost like a seamless transition into speaking because we're just so accustomed to utilizing that skill. And it's a craft that we hone in on over time. And I know from your standpoint, coming from an educator's background, music education, which is thrilling. I want to hear about that. And transitioning into an administrator's role is so interesting because your art form transitioned from music education really to speaking education. And I hope I say this right. Is it the Enneagrams?
Enneagram.
Enneagram. I always mispronounce that.
It's okay. I have, in fact, one of the titles of my talk is Ennea what? Because it's such a hard word to say. It's okay.
Yeah. So if anything, talk to me about that transition from, coming from this music background and then working it into into speaking.
Sure. So, as every teacher is, we're kind of storytellers and want to give you the whole story. So when I was little, I always wanted to be the teacher. I was totally the girl with the whiteboard or not even a whiteboard at the time. I'm old. There was chalkboard. Let me be real. There was chalkboard and there were stuffed animals. And my friends probably got very tired of me telling them the things that I learned. And I did, I was like a TA, taught Sunday school, I did all those things growing up, and I knew that I wanted to teach. And I also loved teaching music because there was a piece of that was the depth of our humanity. And even at a young age, I knew that was why I loved teaching music and why the arts were so important to me. I was in theater and I was in music, but it was the pleasure of singing together as a group that just captured my heart. And I wanted other people to be able to do that. And so at 18, I went into music education, and I was one of the rare people who majored in the degree that you get and then taught the job that you got. And so I loved teaching music. It was a lovely and wonderful career. And now through the glories of social media, I'm still friends with some of my former students, and which was really fun. And I taught at a kindergarten through 8th grade school most of my career. And I loved that. I am the interesting person who loves teaching middle school. I loved
Yeah,
middle
you're a
school.
rare animal there.
It is a rare animal, and I loved it.
Yeah.
And so being in a K-8 school was great because I had this really broad experience in teaching kids who were, really early childhood coming in. And we had a couple preschoolers in our building, and all the way through transitioning children into secondary school at a high school level. So all the way from early childhood to early adolescence gave me this broad perspective of child development, a broad perspective of what's required in the nuances of educating those different types of people. And I was on committees, and stuff like that. And when I came into administration, I actually had a principal back when I was the music teacher that was like, "You're going to be an administrator." And I'm like, why would I ever want to be a principal? That's crazy. And I don't want to do discipline. I don't want to do
Yeah.
that. I just thought that was nutty. And
Like
then,
in harmony, pun.
yeah, exactly. Like, I don't do that. There's so many responsibilities. You're like managing all these competing interests. Anyway, so I transitioned into an administrator role that was really this kind of interesting dream role at a private school where my kids were. I was an administrator as part of a team. I wasn't the sole person responsible. I love teams of people, hence the groups of people singing together. And so all of those music skills, all of those theater skills, all of those skills of learning how to manage various age groups, really, I was shocked how transferable they were into leading a school. And I mean, when you are working in a choir and you have to manage different people, the fidgety 10-year-old with the girl who is like, "La," at the same time. Oh, me too. And so when you're managing all of that, it really does transfer into, okay, this specialist needs this first grade teacher needs this, it transfers. And I was surprised how well it transferred and what I had learned growing up in the arts. And then managing adults, that was actually kind of the biggest transition of like, oh, how do I manage adults versus managing children? But then you really do realize that people are people, and the tiny humans who are most like us in our emotions and least like us in our logic are very much adults, just have better logic, and we still have to manage their emotions, and we still have to manage their feelings and helping them learn. And you just tend to have more willing partners.
So true. Oh my goodness. Like, you think about the parallels between children and adults. I mean, I talk about it constantly with my husband, and he manages adults. I was in a classroom for 10 years. So if anything, the similarities, it's a little hilarious, but
It
so
is.
accurate. And I love the way that you said you were able to translate your knowledge of music and managing the choir and sort of work that into your role as an administrator. And it's just one of those things where you have all these pieces and elements at play that you had experience with, but you were applying it to a new setting and a new atmosphere, and it really helped you. And I
Oh,
love that.
absolutely.
Yes, the arts are powerful. So,
Absolutely. And even just the theater presence. I mean, even though I did theater in high school, I didn't end up in it for real. But learning how to manage yourself on a stage, learning how, even though I would never have said to my partner, um, is that transferable skill into education, into administration, and then into speaking. Like, how do I communicate this message in a way that my reader, my listener, my audience how do they get that so they can transform?
That is so beautiful. That process, it really is. And the ability to transform is, I think it's like we have to embrace all parts of that. So if anything, what I want to head into right now is a little screen share action.
Oh, sure.
I would love to see what you've been working on, whatever you share. You know, let's dive in deep and
Okay.
explore a little bit of what you're doing right now.
All right. Well, I have, of course, because of who I am, way too many tabs open. But so
Yeah,
you cut me off when it's time. And I'm going to share my screen. Okay. There we go. Because there's always voices. Always voices.
love
All
the
right. Can you
visual.
see?
Yes.
Okay, great. So this is my website. I am not a visual creative. I have way too many friends who are graphic designers who really, really know what they're doing. And if they've taught me nothing, they're like, if you don't know what you're doing, keep it simple. So my attempt at simple in my starburst mind. So I never thought I would be a writer. My husband for years has been like, you need to write, you need to write. And I have this that I write in, and I have this that I write in, and I have another one over here that I write in, and I'm like, I'm not a writer, but I am. And so I have discovered that writing really helps me learn. There's a Francis Bacon quote that is really powerful that I'm going to forget for a second, that goes into the idea that when you read, you get full. When you converse about it, you get well-rounded. But when you write, you get exact. And so when you write, you begin to know what you really think about something. And so that's where I'm not a creative writer in that sense, but I write to understand what I'm thinking and to help my reader then understand something. So this is my blog. And so I have lots of different stories on here about conflict, about leadership, about the Enneagram. And so let me see if I can pull up one that's kind of fun. So this, let's do, oh, this one. I love this one.
You say you're not artistic, but I'm seeing a consistent color scheme here, girl.
Keep
Like,
it simple. That's what I was told to keep it simple.
I see what you're doing with the website. All right. Like, the purple is there, it's good. It's working. I like
There
it.
we go. So this is one of just a recent piece, and I love the word assumicide, and assumicide and the lie that just won't die. And so this piece is basically about an experience I had with my own child. And so in this creative process, I've been really working on telling a story better. This is the hardest transition from teaching, is from instruction to telling a story. And so this is what I've been working on. And so this is my story, that it happened in our house, and there was a suicide and there were great casualties. And just telling the story about my son and my 17-year-old, my oldest, and really catching me in a cycle of a suicide, which was something that we'd been talking about with him a couple days before. And how we all then believe these lies that we don't have to swallow anymore. Like, they're done. They're just in our self-consciousness. And that's why I love the Enneagram, because it helps us dig out some of those lies that we've been believing for so long, and embracing the worst parts of ourselves and learn to integrate that with the best part of ourselves to become this whole person. So that's what the story about a suicide and the lie that just won't die.
It's interesting because it's fun to say, but then it has so much weight and depth. And, a lot of the time we don't take ownership for those faults and assumptions and things that we've, led ourselves to believe for so long. And, if anything, I think being honest and, chasing that honesty and then embracing it is something that is so powerful. And, in this case, is essential when you are raising children or even teaching children, because we all need to, foster this mentality of let's own, let's own every part of ourselves. But it's hard. It is a constant process.
Hard. I mean, this sounds dumb, but my big idea is that we own our stuff. So when I'm working with my kids, like my own four, I have been constantly reminding them this spring that they're like, oh my gosh, it's so hot. It's so hot when it's 62 degrees outside. Right. And I'm like, you're hot. Like, own it. I'm hot. Like even just this tiny little difference, because it's like, I can't go outside, it's so hot, rather than, you know what, I'm hot, I'm uncomfortable. Is it worth the discomfort? And I know that seems like minor, but it's like a non-intense way, low stakes way to help my kids just continue to learn, own your stuff. Like, it is objectively not hot outside at 62 degrees. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You can be hot at 62 degrees and that's fine.
Right.
Own your stuff. So random tangent story.
Hey, well, it's the little things that trickle into the bigger things in our lives. And it's
Yes,
like
absolutely.
how we respond in those small situations is so telling for when the bigger stuff comes
Yeah.
along. So yeah,
Yeah.
this is some really juicy material that you have here.
So,
If there's anything else that you want to share, feel free to, and then we'll dive into the next
sure.
part of Lost in Creation.
Yeah, so here's a quick, like, my low quality speaker reel, but it gives you an idea. I hope you can hear it.
Let's say I don't, but you look fabulous.
Oh, thanks. I'm trying to figure out how to make this sound. I wonder if because it's through my microphone, my fancy podcast.
Oh, that's probably maybe what it is.
Yeah. But you can kind of.
You can give me some background on.
Yeah. So here are a few different times. This was speaking of the Boy Scouts, and one of my signature talks is about conflict resolution for leaders.
Okay.
And so when I talk about conflict resolution for leaders, I start with the big question of what would you do with 3 extra hours a week? And the same things come up every time. People want to sleep more, they want to exercise more, and they want to spend more time with their family. Every time. I've given it dozens of times in the last couple of years, and I have yet to have different answers. That's where they fall. And because unresolved conflict takes about 3 hours of your work week every week. And that's how I get people into the story of learning how conflict resolution and the management of conflict and communication is vital to your team, vital to yourself, and who we are. So That's what's happening in this story, in my speaker reel.
I love. Okay, can you explain the image on the slide? Because
absolutely,
it's really beautiful.
So what I'm doing, because I do this every time, we pretend that we are not whole people, and that I'm at work and I am working on calling the client, I am managing a billing report, and my home self is over here binge watching Netflix or dealing with my children or baking something. When really the goal of life, back to me wanting people to be whole, is that we integrate everything together. We don't just leave behind our home self. And if something has happened that is emotionally affecting you at work, you can't just pretend it doesn't exist. Then it's like a toddler that's hanging on you and you like drag it in and it affects everything.
We're fine.
We're totally fine. It's not a big deal. So that's that image of like, you can't pretend that it's not there and ignore it and separate yourself. You need to be a whole person together. And leaders have to spend, Brene Brown says this, leaders have to spend a reasonable amount of time dealing with fears and feelings, or spend an unreasonable amount of time dealing with mismanaged behavior. So that's where that whole piece comes in. So those are my.
I mean, what an elegant way of depicting that, if anything, you're saying this is a low quality reel, but it's like, just how animated you are when you speak is a beautiful thing. And I can see the acting. I can see the like, how do I say, the conductor.
The conductor. Well, Esther Wagner and Arnold Epley would be proud.
Oh, yes, you have it. And it's really beautiful to see that, because nobody wants to sit through, a talk where you're looking at somebody that looks like they, just had no desire.
You're like, did you have coffee? I don't know.
Did you have coffee?
Yeah. So can I show you one more thing? Do I have time? One more thing. So this is just a new practice that I'm developing, because I think as creatives, we like to, one of the things that's hardest for me is discipline and process. And that's a challenge for me. Like, I want to just create rather than, oh no, there is a structure that makes things better. Right. And so and we can want to develop all these different things at different times. So my current, like, here's what I'm working on and here's what I'm trying to improve. is getting better at headlines, because headlines are hard, and email headlines are hard, newsletter headlines are hard, the title of my talk is hard, all of that's hard. And it's so important, is that it's just like people taught us, you know, in those career classes in high school, that your first impression, you don't get a second chance to make a first impression kind of idea.
The
That's your
attention
headline.
factor. Yes.
Yeah, it's your headline. So this is my new practice. I have a headline template, and I just have a chart that lists down to 26, and I require myself to write 25 headlines before I pick one. Now, I may pick 16, I may pick 25, I may pick number 2, but I force myself to write 25. And then I just delete them. You know, like I just go through and type and tab to the next one until I get to 25 new ones. And, but I just think as creatives, sometimes we can forget that there is discipline to our creation. And so I wanted to share that just as a, it doesn't all just come to you. Creation is work. And so this is my one little practice that I'm working on right now, is writing down 25 headlines before I pick one.
This is such a great idea. I hope that, like, I know that speaker people that are looking at this are just like, you know, just like shaking with excitement because they see a chart, you know, but if anything, not only that, but it's just a really great way to like flesh out your ideas, because
Yes.
not enough times are we like, you know, because my best ideas come in the shower. So like, how am I going to remember that? Right.
Right.
So
Right.
if anything, being organized so that other pieces of your practice can get better and better is such a valuable tool to have.
Yeah, it's been really, really helpful to me.
Yeah.
And because, so one of my grad school classes was, I think it was blandly called teaching writing, but it was so much more than that. It was this fantastic master's level course in writing, and it was about teaching writing. But the best parts of it were all types of writing come down to who's the writer, who's the reader, and what do you want them to know? And that's what speaking is. Who's the speaker, who's the audience, what do you want them to know? And, you know, how do you want them to feel? And what do you want them to do? It's actually very basic, but there's that frame can hold millions of permutations of beautiful art. But it's still, who am I? Who are you? And what do I want you to know, feel, and do?
Thank you for sharing that.
You're so welcome.
Yeah, it's like it's a very simple and thorough breakdown of, you know, at least what I'm dealing with, trying to be, you know, a speaker. And, you know, I shouldn't even say trying, like I am a speaker.
You are a speaker. Say it and claim it.
I have to stop doing that. I feel like it's my first year trying this out, and you know, I feel like I've earned,
Yeah.
I've earned, you know, at this point.
First time I had to introduce myself not as an educator and as a writer, speaker, and coach, it was like, and I was so glad it was just somebody that I kind of knew and was explaining a career change, because it just took me a really long time to be able to say, yeah, that's what I do.
Right.
It's a hard, there's something that's a different kind of imposter syndrome, I think, about saying, I have the kind of the chutzpah to get up in front of people and say, I have a message to share with you. And, you know, it's hard. And, but then when you realize I am serving people in
Right.
this way, and it takes the focus off of you, I feel like it becomes a little bit easier. So claim it, Sarah.
I'm going to claim it. Are you Jewish?
No.
You said chutzpah. You said chutzpah.
I did. I do have a deep love. In high school, I was fascinated. In fact, my high school honors project was on the Haganah, which is the Jewish Defense Force in Israel. Okay. And I was fascinated. And I studied Holocaust literature in Oxford. And yeah, so it's a fascination. My brother-in-law, and I have a sister-in-law who actually happened to be Jewish, but that happened later in life.
Well, my dad and my sister is now Orthodox, so that's a different story.
That's a whole nother story.
Let's out of screen share, and we're going to tap this up with a little ribbon and talk a little bit about community. So I love tying every talk that we do here. I love tying this into what is the proudest thing you've done in the community, and as a person who is a leader, an administrator, an educator, you have impacted your community and have led your community. So what is, like, I want to say, one of the proudest things that you've accomplished working with others, and especially in this time of quarantine, like having that ability to reach out?
Yeah. That's really hard. I think, well, there's a few different things that I work on in our community that I love to do. And I think they are the bites of the elephant of making a whole community. You know what I'm saying? Like you can't eat, how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? That's that old cliche. And so I think some of the things that I do when, I recently spoke at the Project Managers Institute about how to handle conflict and conflict resolution for leaders. And there was like 150-ish on this virtual thing. Right. And, because that's what we do now. And the responses I got back from that were really amazing. And I'm just sharing my stuff. And I am constantly amazed at how powerful it is to walk people through, here's how you handle conflict. Because I say it all the time, and so I don't know why it shocks me, but I firmly believe that relationships rise and fall on your ability to handle conflict. And your ability to handle conflict depends a lot on how you know yourself. Those two things are huge. And so when I was helping this group of 150 people who represent 150 different organizations in St. Louis, who all project managers are all in the middle. They manage the creative department, they manage the account, they manage billing, that, they're in between everything. And I gave them a set of skills to then help the people that they're in the middle of. So that was I really loved doing that. I did a women's leadership program recently that was a much broader community. It was in Pennsylvania. It was supposed to be in Pennsylvania. It ended up being like this. So there were women all over the country, and that was really fun just to empower women, because I think as women, we have a lot of mixed messages about how we're supposed to be and handle and do, and lots of tone policing or not, and especially depending on your race. And so it was really helpful to, it was really not helpful. It was really meaningful to me to empower women with some really practical skills to handle conflict. And I think in my broader St. Louis community, one of the things that I love to do the most is I'm a liaison, and I work as a speaker with a volunteer community called Faith and for the Sake of All. And we go into faith communities, so synagogues, churches, mosques, other organizations in the community, and we present data about health, wellness, education, and housing disparity between Black and white people in St. Louis. So there's a data set that we present, and we say, what does your faith say about loving your neighbor? Here's what the data says about the disparity in St. Louis, in our community, down on your streets, about if you live in this zip code, you're going to live 20 years less than you do if you live in this zip code. We have data about that. And now what do we do with that? So I get to use my speaking to really impact communities of faith, to start to be involved in housing policy, to be involved in racial reconciliation and equity work in my community. And I'm just a liaison with an organization, but that's one of my favorite things that I get to do.
Wow. I think that is it's so amazing. And the fact that, it's like, quarantine ain't holding me down. I'm going to do a virtual talk, and it's going to affect hundreds of people. And I'm going to make sure that people understand what to do with conflict resolution. And you take that, online and in person in your community with sectors of faith. That is so beautiful. And
thanks.
Yes, that is above and beyond, really, when I ask about what you do for the community. Whoa. But if anything, it's obvious to see that you're so passionate, and anybody looking for somebody to speak about leadership and what it means to be a powerful speaker, female, administrator, educator, I really do hope they get a hold of you, because
I love it.
It's obvious that this is something that you're meant to do.
Why, thank you. That's kind.
Yes. And I think, it all comes from the heart. And I just had so much fun talking with you and just exploring more about you, because, you know, for people looking at this, I know that you're also in the female group of speakers that I'm in, and
Yes.
we really
Although we've never gotten to talk. I've only seen you
know.
online, so it's so fun to see your face.
Yes, and I think this is such a meaningful way to connect, and, you know, for other female speakers and artists who are out there, you know, banding together and making sure that you have the community to lean on is such an essential tool,
Yeah.
and it's just going to push you and make you more inspired. So
Yeah.
that's
Even though we're on the stage by ourselves most of the time, we're not by ourselves. Like, we're
behind
working
the scenes
together behind the scenes. There's 1,000 women sending panic text messages and saying, "Can I
right.
do this?" Yes, you can.
Absolutely right. It's a very supportive atmosphere, at least the one that we're in. So
Yes.
yeah, I feel very blessed, and I think, you know, in the future, uh, I look forward to seeing you out there. And, you know, what is the best way for people to get a hold of you, for, you know, booking and, you know, just future
Yeah.
reference?
Absolutely. So my website is jennwhitmer.com. So Jenn with two N's. And so JENNWHITMER. And so jennwhitmer.com. And I am Jenn_Whitmer in kind of all the places: Twitter, Instagram, Facebook is Jenn Whitmer Speaks, Pinterest, you know. I have yet to venture into TikTok. We'll see. But yeah,
It goes
so
there. Yeah.
I know. So booking inquiries, I've got on my website, there's a tab for speaking that has my speaker reel and my speaker one sheet and a calendar. So I've got to just sign up for 30 minutes and we can talk about your event, because it's always easier to get on the phone, talk about event for booking. And so that is, yeah. And then for my coaching, it's also all there for Enneagram coaching, and the one-on-one coaching that I do is also on my website if you want to learn more about the Enneagram. There's lots of different options to learn about how that self-awareness tool and wisdom tool improves your leadership, makes your life more whole, helps you stop making the same mistakes over and over again, all that kind of stuff. So that's on the tab that says Enneagram on my website. So jennwhitmer.com.
Yes, yes. I'm excited to see what you have in the future, and
Oh,
I hope
thanks.
people explore your social media and
Yes.
just take a look at what she's about, because she's incredible. So thank you again, Jenn, for joining Lost in Creation, and
Yes.
I hope you have a beautiful, amazing, wonderful day.
Thank you. You too.